My wife pushed for an open marriage and actually said, "You won't have girls lining up for you anyway." And now she's the one having a nuclear meltdown, watching me get all the attention while she gets ghosted. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, it's free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hi, I never thought I'd be posting here, but life comes at you fast, kind of like how my wife came at me with, "We're in an open marriage now," over appetizers at our anniversary dinner. That was 6 months ago, and I'm only now able to talk about it without my eye twitching. Settle in, because this story is longer than the pause after she dropped that bomb. I'm 32, married to my wife. I'll call her Rachel, 31, and we've been together about 6 years. Early 30s, no kids, decent careers, shared apartment, pretty normal stuff. For the most part, things were steady. Not perfect, but we made it work. We met in college, got married right after graduation, and settled into that typical suburban American dream, white picket fence not included, but you get the idea. First, everything felt good. Our careers were taking off, we liked the same shows, went hiking on weekends, did all the normal couple things. But somewhere around year 4, things started getting stale, and not the usual marriage takes work kind of stale people warn you about. This was different. Rachel began coming home later and later from work. First, I didn't think much of it. We both had demanding jobs, and sometimes you put in extra hours to keep the boss happy, right? But then I noticed she'd walk in, barely look at me, and head straight to the shower. No kiss hello. No, how was your day? Just nothing. I'd be sitting there with dinner I made getting cold on the table, watching Netflix alone while she spent an hour decompressing upstairs. When she finally came down, she'd grab a plate, microwave it, and eat while scrolling through her phone. Half the time she wouldn't even sit at the table with me. "Rough day," I'd ask. She'd mumble, not looking up from whatever was so interesting on Instagram. I started feeling like a ghost in my own home, like I could walk around naked covered in blue paint and she still wouldn't notice. I tried everything. I cooked her favorite meals, suggested date nights, even bought her random gifts just to see her smile again. Nothing worked. She'd nod, say thanks, and go back to what she was doing. I tried talking to her about it a few times. "Hey, Rachel, is everything okay with us?" "Yeah." "Why?" "I don't know. You just seem distant lately." She'd look annoyed, like I was creating problems out of thin air. "I'm just tired from work. Not everything has to be a big dramatic thing, you know?" And I drop it because what else was I supposed to do? Force her to be present? Demand she explain what was going on in her head? I wasn't her jailer. Then about 6 months ago, things got even weirder. Rachel got really into self-help podcasts, journaling, growth work, therapy, the whole package. At first, I was supportive. Good for her. If anything, I encouraged it. I figured maybe she was working through whatever had been making her so checked out. But instead of bringing us closer, she pulled away more. Not just physically, but emotionally too. She stopped checking in with me completely, stopped initiating conversations, stopped really engaging at all. Our apartment turned into this strange neutral zone where we just coexisted without actually connecting. I'd come home exhausted, wanting to vent about my boss or laugh about something stupid that happened at work. But Rachel would be sitting cross-legged on the floor with her journal, earbuds in, completely in her own world. If I tried to talk to her, she'd hold up a finger like, "Not now," and keep writing. By the time she was ready to engage, I'd already given up and gone to bed. I started dreading coming home. I'd stop at the bar with coworkers more often just to delay walking into that cold, empty apartment. Even though she was physically there, it felt abandoned. No warmth, no life. When I brought it up, she'd just say she was working through things internally, whatever that meant. I gave her space. I stayed patient. I didn't push too hard. Maybe I should have. I remember one night after a particularly bad day at work, I came home just wanting to relax and talk to someone. The apartment was dark again except for the glow of Rachel's laptop in the bedroom. I found her typing away, earbuds in, completely oblivious to me. I stood in the doorway for a full minute before she even noticed I was there. "Oh, hey," she said. "I didn't hear you come in." "I've been home for 20 minutes, I said. "I was in the kitchen." "Oh." She glanced back at her screen. "Did you eat?" I grabbed something with Vanessa after work. Vanessa, the new work friend. I remembered meeting Vanessa at Rachel's office Christmas party last year. Tall, blonde, fake boobs, kind of loud, always touching people when she talked. She gave me weird vibes then, but I just nodded and walked away, feeling that familiar hollow ache in my chest. Once again, I'd be eating alone, watching TV alone, and eventually sleeping alone despite sharing a bed with my wife. Then came our anniversary. Neither of us had planned anything special. Pretty telling about where we were at that point. We were just sitting on the couch, takeout containers on the coffee table, some random Netflix show neither of us was watching. I was scrolling through my phone when Rachel suddenly muted the TV. "We need to talk about us," she says with this weird, serious look on her face. I put my phone down, leaned back, and just waited. Whenever someone starts a conversation like that, whatever's coming isn't good. But I wasn't about to show the late nights at work, the password on her phone that wasn't there before. This isn't a random idea. She's already got someone lined up, maybe already started. So I decided to test my theory. "So, let me get this straight," I say with a casual shrug. "You're saying it's cool if I go out and hook up with other women, too?" Then she does this little laugh. Not nervous, but like I'm being ridiculous. "Don't be so dramatic," she says, rolling her eyes. "Besides, it's not like you'll have girls lining up for you anyway. You haven't exactly been fighting them off all these years." That's when I knew our marriage was already dead. She didn't just want to sleep with other guys. She wanted to make sure I knew she thought I couldn't do the same. Got to admit, that cut deep. We'd been together since college. I hadn't needed to fight off other women because I was committed to her. And now she was throwing it in my face like I was some loser who should be grateful anyone wanted me at all. But this wasn't Rachel at all, or at least not the Rachel I married. She used to talk about her friends who cheated on their boyfriends. Now she's sitting there telling me how limiting monogamy is and taking shots at my desirability. Something wasn't adding up. After some pushing, she finally mentioned her coworker Vanessa had been opening her eyes to new relationship styles. Apparently, Vanessa and her husband had an open marriage and were super happy, living their best lives or whatever. I straight up told her I wasn't comfortable with it, but the way she framed it wasn't really like a question. It was more like she was telling me about this cool new evolved relationship model we were going to try. And honestly, I was just tired. Tired of being the only one trying. Tired of feeling like everything was on me to fix. So I said fine. Not because I wanted it, but because I was already checked out and didn't have the energy to argue anymore. In my head, though, I was already thinking about divorce. Like, who the hell asks their husband if they can sleep with other people, insults him in the process, and expects the marriage to survive that? But I didn't say that part out loud. I just set some ground rules. No emotional attachments, complete honesty about everything, and safety first. And most importantly, we'd revisit the whole thing if one of us started getting serious feelings for someone else. She agreed to all of it. Of course, Rachel jumped right in. I think it was literally the same weekend we had the talk. She had 2 hookups back to back. Came home looking like she just discovered the meaning of life or something. Told me about it in these vague terms, saying it made her feel alive and free. She was proud of herself. Man, the freaking audacity. I just nodded along, pretending to be interested in all the details, even though every word felt like another nail in the coffin. What else could I do? The marriage was clearly over. Honestly, it had probably been over for a while. This was just the final confirmation I needed. While she went on about her amazing new experiences, I sat there quietly, mentally calculating how we divide our assets and wondering if my buddy's couch would be free for a few weeks. I didn't say any of that out loud. I just smiled when I was supposed to and made the right noises at the right moments. I figured I'd stick around for a bit, get my ducks in a row, maybe even see what this whole open marriage thing was about while I quietly prepared for the inevitable divorce. Not because I wanted to win or prove anything stupid like that. But why rush out the door unprepared? She had her plans and I had mine. She just didn't know mine involved signing papers and finding a new address. Still, I didn't want to just start hooking up with random women. That wasn't me. Instead, I turned inward. I started hitting the gym again. I got back into rock climbing, something I used to love before marriage swallowed up my free time. I updated my wardrobe, got a fresh haircut, started going out more like I used to when I was single. Nothing dramatic, just basic self-improvement stuff. The first night I came home from the gym, sweaty and actually feeling good about myself for the first time in months. Rachel was in the kitchen making a smoothie or something. "You're going to the gym now?" she asked, sounding surprised. "Yeah, thought I'd get back into it." She looked me up and down with this strange expression. Not hostile, not impressed, just calculating. "Huh," was all she said before turning back to her blender. That same evening after work, I went out with friends instead of coming straight home. The next morning, I got up early to hit the gym before work. Rachel was still in bed, phone in hand as usual. Again, she asked about it. "Yep, trying to make it a habit." She frowned slightly. "You're never around anymore." I almost laughed. For months, she'd barely acknowledged my existence. And now she was bothered that I wasn't around. I just shrugged and headed out. Let her sit with that feeling for once. What surprised me the most wasn't the attention from other women. It was how quickly I stopped caring about Rachel's opinion of me. Every day I focused on myself, worked out, reconnected with old hobbies. It felt like I was peeling off layers of that needy, approval-seeking guy I turned into. I wasn't doing any of it to make her jealous or prove a point. I was doing it because, for the first time in years, I remembered what it felt like to actually like myself. The more I got out, socialized, and genuinely enjoyed my life, the more people seemed to notice. Women at the gym started casual conversations. An old college friend messaged me on Instagram. The barista at my regular coffee shop began remembering my order and chatting with me. Then my phone started blowing up. At first, it was just a few DMs from women I kind of knew, old classmates, friends of friends. Then it snowballed. Someone must have mentioned something because suddenly I was getting messages from women I'd never even met. "Hey, heard you might be looking for company. Your profile came up on my feed and I had to say hi. Are you really in an open relationship now? Asking for a friend." Oh. At first, I thought it had to be some prank Rachel was pulling. But no, these were real women. Attractive ones too, shooting their shot. I even got a couple of straight-up offers for hookups with zero strings attached. My phone would ding all day long. It was surreal. I didn't go crazy with it. I didn't need to. I just started saying yes to more social plans, being open to whatever came naturally. That's how I met Lily. She's a graphic designer. The first time I went out to dinner with Lily, Rachel actually noticed. "You're going out? Where?" she asked, looking up from her phone for once. "Just grabbing dinner with someone I met at that art thing last weekend." Her eyebrows lifted. "Like a date?" "I mean, yeah," I said, adjusting my collar in the mirror. She nodded, but something shifted in her expression. It was subtle, but it was there, like she'd suddenly realized there might be consequences to her brilliant idea. Lily and I started seeing each other once or twice a week. It wasn't secret. We were both upfront about our situations. And even though it wasn't super serious, she was probably the only person I'd felt genuinely myself around in months. Around that time, Rachel began noticing how often my phone was going off. At first, she didn't say anything, but I'd catch her glancing over every time the screen lit up with another notification. One time I was making breakfast when my phone buzzed 5 times in a row, sharp and back to back, and I caught Rachel watching it from across the kitchen. She didn't say a word, just lifted her coffee and took a slow sip, pretending she wasn't paying attention, but the look on her face gave her away. It was confusion mixed with something I couldn't quite name. Maybe disbelief. Maybe the first flicker of doubt. Another evening, I was stretched out on the couch, half focused on Instagram, when a new DM came through from a girl I'd met at rock climbing. She was asking if I wanted to join a group climb that weekend. Rachel walked by right as I started typing a reply, and I noticed her steps slow, her body hovering just a little too long behind me. "Popular these days, huh?" she said finally, aiming for casual but missing it by a mile. There was an edge in her voice she couldn't sand down. I shrugged. Just climbing stuff. She nodded toward my phone. Seems like your phone's been blowing up lately. She tried so hard to sound nonchalant, but her eyes kept flicking to my screen. Yeah, I guess so, I said, leaving it there. I wasn't volunteering anything. Over the next few weeks, it became obvious she was watching me. If my phone lit up and I smiled at a message, she'd suddenly need something from whatever room I was in. If I stepped away to take a call, she'd appear nearby the second I came back, pretending to rearrange something or check her own phone. She never came out and asked who I was talking to, but I could practically see the gears grinding in her head. The woman who had been so sure I'd have no options was slowly realizing she had miscalculated. And badly. One night, as I was tying my shoes to head out, Rachel appeared in the bedroom doorway, leaning against the frame like she was trying to look relaxed. Going somewhere? She asked. Yeah, meeting up with Lily. She repeated the name slowly. Lily, like she was testing how it felt in her mouth. That's the third woman this month. I looked up. Second, actually. Why? No reason, she said quickly. Just keeping track, I guess. Couldn't help it. I thought we weren't supposed to be keeping tabs on each other's social lives. Isn't that part of this whole evolved relationship model of yours? She flinched, just a little. Right? Of course. Then she forced a breezy tone. I'm just surprised, that's all. Surprised that you're, seeing so many people. I had to bite back a laugh. You know what? Turns out the open relationship wasn't a bad idea after all. Her face hardened instantly. The fake smile dropped so fast it was almost impressive. Her eyes narrowed, and I swear I could hear her teeth grinding. Yeah, great idea, she shot back. Enjoy. After that, things unraveled quicker than I expected. Rachel was still seeing some guy from an app, and I was spending time with Lily. Nothing intense. Just easy. We'd grab food, hang out, talk about work or art or whatever came up, and it felt good. Not just the attention. The normalcy. I didn't feel trapped in that one-sided emotional dead zone I'd been stuck in with Rachel for months. Meanwhile, Rachel's so-called hot girl summer started collapsing. The guy she was seeing ghosted her out of nowhere. One weekend they were together, the next he stopped replying completely. She acted like it didn't matter, but she kept bringing it up in these offhand comments. It's just weird because we had such a good connection. I'd nod, sip my coffee, and keep my thoughts to myself. I won't lie, it felt like watching karma unfold in real time. At one point, I briefly saw someone else from my climbing gym. We went on a few hikes that turned into a casual weekend thing. We both understood exactly what it was. No games, no drama, just mutual respect. And then it ended naturally. Rachel didn't even notice at first. She was still stuck in this headspace where she assumed I revolved around her. But eventually she went quiet, started asking small, probing questions. Are you seeing Lily again tonight? Did you tell her about our situation? It wasn't about concern. She was trying to measure how far I drifted from her orbit. One night I came home from dinner with Lily and found Rachel sitting stiffly on the couch, arms crossed tight against her chest. She asked if I could stop emotional cheating and focus on our marriage if I still wanted to fix it. I just stared at her. You wanted freedom, I said calmly. I just took mine too. That didn't go over well. She got angry, started listing everything I was apparently doing wrong. Texting Lily daily was disrespectful. Going out to dinner crossed lines. Continuing to see someone she didn't approve of made her feel unsafe. I didn't raise my voice. I simply reminded her that she had gone out and slept with someone else the very first weekend of this arrangement. She hadn't asked for permission. She hadn't given me time to process. She'd just done it and come home smiling. That's different, she insisted. Those were just hookups. You're getting emotionally involved. She said it like that settled everything. I looked at her and kept my voice steady. You never said that was against the rules. You just said no serious attachments. She crossed her arms. Well, I'm clarifying the rules now. I shook my head. No, you're changing them because you don't like how this is playing out. That was the truth of it. Now that things on her side weren't going so well, I was supposed to what? drop something that was actually working for me just to protect her ego? She tried to spin it again, claiming she hadn't realized how serious things could get if we both actually followed through with the open marriage idea. In her mind, it was supposed to be nothing more than a few meaningless hookups. The wildest part was that she still wasn't sorry. Not even. Instead, she acted as if I had somehow corrupted her pure, evolved relationship model and turned it into something ugly. By then, though, I wasn't even angry. I was tired. Watching her scramble to adjust the rules the moment they stopped favoring her didn't hurt anymore. Clarified everything. This wasn't a partnership. It was an arrangement built around her needs, her comfort, her narrative. So I called a lawyer and quietly started the divorce process. No shouting match. No dramatic announcement. I was simply done. The feeling surprised me. It was almost a relief, like checking out of a bad hotel you'd overstayed in for far too long. Sure, for a minute it had been almost amusing watching her squirm when she realized I had options. But that novelty faded quickly. Why keep pretending when we both knew the marriage was already finished? It was time to move on and stop wasting each other's lives. Around then, I got a DM on Instagram from Vanessa, Rachel's coworker, the one Rachel claimed had this amazing open marriage and had supposedly inspired the whole thing. "Hey, I hope this isn't weird, but I've been meaning to reach out. Rachel talks about you all the time at work, and I was wondering if you'd want to grab coffee sometime." No pressure. I stared at the message for a full 10 minutes. Was this a setup? Some kind of test? But at that point, I honestly didn't care. The divorce papers were already in motion. If this was the woman who had allegedly blown up my marriage, I might as well hear her side before I closed the door on this chapter for good. We met at a small cafe downtown. I recognized Vanessa from the Christmas party, but she seemed different now. More composed, less flashy. She sat down and got straight to it. "So, I'm guessing you're wondering why I wanted to meet." I nodded. Then she dropped it. "I need to clear something up. My husband and I don't have an open marriage. We never have." I don't know why Rachel would say that. I almost choked on my coffee. "Wait, what?" "Rachel said you convinced her to try it. That you and your husband were doing it and loving it." Vanessa looked genuinely confused. "That's just not true. God, I hope Mike doesn't hear about this. We're as monogamous as they come." I felt the ground shift under me. Then why would she say that? Vanessa sighed. "Honestly, I think she's been trying to impress the new manager at work. He's this young tech bro type who's always going on about his progressive relationship style. Rachel's been all over him since he started." I leaned back, trying to piece it together. So Rachel had lied about where the idea came from. Had she been building this narrative the whole time? Vanessa went on to say she'd been worried about Rachel for months. Said she'd been acting strange at work, flirting with coworkers, disappearing for long lunches with the new manager. Then she mentioned something else. Rachel had been bringing one of her hookups to office happy hours, introducing him as a friend but getting noticeably handsy in front of everyone. "It was embarrassing," Vanessa admitted. "Everyone knows she's married. I thought you should know." By the time we finished our coffee, I felt like I'd been handed a completely different version of my own marriage. I thanked Vanessa for being honest. I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice she was attractive, but I wasn't about to complicate things further. That would have been a mess on top of a disaster. Still, as we stood to leave, she hesitated and asked if I'd want to grab dinner sometime. She said she'd always thought I seemed nice and grounded, unlike some of the guys Rachel talked about. To my own surprise, I said yes. On the drive home, my thoughts wouldn't slow down. Part of me wondered if Vanessa was telling the truth. What if this was her way of driving a wedge between me and Rachel? What if she had her own agenda? But then again, why would Rachel lie about something as specific as Vanessa's marriage? Nothing made sense anymore, and I honestly didn't know who to believe. But I guess someone must have seen Vanessa and me at the cafe and reported back, because when I walked through the front door that night, all hell was waiting for me. Rachel was standing there, eyes red and swollen from crying. "You went out with Vanessa, my friend, from my work." She was shaking. I didn't interrupt. I just stood there and let her unload everything she had. When she finally ran out of steam, I told her calmly what I'd learned. That Vanessa and her husband didn't have an open marriage. That Rachel had been parading one of her hookups around at work events. That the idea had probably come from her new manager, not her friend. I watched the color drain from her face. Then, just like that, she changed strategies. The anger dissolved into tears. She said she'd made a huge mistake. Said she'd been confused, influenced by people at work. Said she realized now how much she loved me and only me. She wanted to close the marriage, go back to being monogamous, maybe even try couples therapy. I was just experimenting, she sobbed. I didn't think you'd actually go along with it and start seeing other women. I stared at her. So you thought what? That I'd just sit at home while you explored? She hesitated. Then the truth slipped out. I didn't think you'd actually get dates. She immediately looked like she wished she could take it back. I mean, I never thought you'd be so into it. And there it was. The part she hadn't meant to say out loud. She never expected other women to want me. She'd built this whole open marriage fantasy assuming she'd be the only one benefiting, while I waited around as some backup plan for when she was done chasing excitement. You know what the funniest part is? I said. I never even tried. I didn't download dating apps begging for matches. I didn't message old exes. I just started working on myself and women noticed. Meanwhile, you were out there actively searching and still getting ghosted. That hit hard. Her tears dried up and were replaced with pure anger in about 2 seconds. So what? You think you're so great now? You weren't complaining when I was the only woman who would look at you for 6 years. No, I said evenly. I wasn't complaining because I was committed to you. I didn't want other women looking at me. But you changed the rules. You decided our marriage wasn't enough. Don't get mad that I turned out to be better at the game you started. She stormed out after that, slamming the door so hard a framed picture crashed to the floor. I stayed on the couch, feeling this strange mix of anger and relief, like finally the truth was out there in the open. She had expected me to fail without her. Expected me to struggle so she could point and say she was the best I'd ever get. That I needed her more than she needed me. But that wasn't how it played out and she couldn't stand it. The next day, Vanessa texted me to say Rachel had confronted her at work, called her a backstabber, made a scene in the break room, accused her of trying to steal her husband. I felt bad Vanessa got dragged into it, but at the same time, I knew something inside me had fully closed. That night, I handed Rachel the divorce papers I'd had drawn up weeks earlier. The look on her face when she realized this wasn't a reaction to Vanessa, that I'd been planning this quietly for a while, is something I won't forget. Marriage isn't a game, I told her. You don't get to rewrite the rules whenever it suits you and then switch them back when it doesn't. I'm done. She panicked. Full panic. Crying, begging, promising anything. She said she'd quit her job, delete every dating app, cut off everyone. Whatever I wanted. But it was too late. I checked out the moment she suggested opening the marriage and laughed about how no one would want me anyway. I just hadn't admitted it to myself back then. You can't do this, she said. I made one mistake. No, I corrected her. You made a series of choices. You chose to pull away from me. You chose to suggest an open marriage. You chose to lie about where you got the idea. You chose to hook up with other guys without giving me time to process. And you chose to make me feel like I should be grateful anyone wanted me at all. Those weren't mistakes. They were decisions. She didn't have an answer for that. Just more tears. More accusations. But never once, not a single time, did she actually apologize for what she'd done. The next few weeks were exhausting. She swung between begging me to reconsider and threatening to ruin me if I followed through. She called my parents and told them I'd been cheating with multiple women, conveniently leaving out the open marriage part. She tried to turn our friends against me, claiming I'd changed and become some kind of player. The only problem was I had proof. Text messages where she laid out the open marriage idea in detail. Screenshots of her dating app profiles. Messages where she literally laughed at the thought of me getting attention from other women. Once people saw the screenshots and messages, the story shifted fast. The version Rachel had been telling didn't hold up once the receipts were out there. But what really sealed it was when her manager decided to insert himself into my life. He actually texted me, said he thought I was being closed-minded and punishing Rachel for her sexual liberation. He even wrote, "If I was a real man, I'd be secure enough to let my wife explore her desires without feeling threatened." I stared at that message for a second, half amused, half disgusted. I didn't bother replying. I just forwarded it to Rachel with one line, "Your boyfriend's texting me now. Real classy." She called immediately, crying, swearing he wasn't her boyfriend, that they'd never hooked up, that he was just a mentor from work. But that didn't matter anymore. If he felt comfortable enough to message me, her husband, and lecture me about my own marriage, then boundaries had already been crossed somewhere. The divorce wasn't pretty, but it was necessary. I didn't stay to watch everything burn down. I moved out, found my own place, and started putting my life back together piece by piece. For a while, I didn't date at all. Not Vanessa. Not Lily. No one. I needed space to think, to process, to figure out who I was without that constant tension hanging over me. Rachel would still text sometimes, usually late at night. Some messages were angry. Some were sad. A few were strangely nostalgic, like she was trying to rewind time with words. After a while, I stopped answering. There was nothing left to unpack. I kept going to the gym, kept rock climbing, kept doing all the things I'd rediscovered during that open marriage phase. Not to prove anything, not to compete, just because I liked how it felt. I reconnected with old friends, made new ones, started taking short weekend trips to places I'd always meant to see but never prioritized. There was a small coffee shop near my new apartment that became part of my routine. Nothing special on the surface, just quiet and steady. The kind of place where you could sit and think. I started going in almost every other day, and eventually the barista noticed. One afternoon, as she handed me my usual, she smiled and said, "Rough week." I must have looked more worn out than I realized because we ended up talking for a few minutes. Nothing heavy at first. Just work, hobbies, favorite books. She joked that I was turning into part of the furniture. Somehow it didn't feel like forced small talk. Felt natural. Easy. Over time, coffee turned into longer conversations. Conversations turned into dinner after her shift. I wasn't searching for anything, but she made it impossible not to see how different things could be when someone genuinely cared. She was grounded, honest. No games. No need to test boundaries or chase validation. She knew who she was, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could just breathe without waiting for the ground to shift under me. Looking back, it's strange. Rachel poured so much energy into chasing freedom, into impressing people who barely paid attention to her. Meanwhile, I found something steady without even trying, just by living my life. What started as her attempt to escape our marriage turned into my path to real freedom. Freedom from constantly needing her approval. Freedom from questioning my own value. Freedom from a relationship that had quietly turned toxic. If she hadn't pushed for that open marriage, I might still be there, cooking dinner for someone who couldn't look up from her phone long enough to notice me. Still feeling invisible in my own home. Months later, I ran into Vanessa at a bar. She was there with her husband, both of them relaxed and drama-free. We caught up briefly. She mentioned Rachel had moved to another state and was still single, still looking for whatever she thought she was missing. I wished her well, and I meant it. There wasn't anger left, just a quiet sense of closure. As for me, life settled into something better. I still go to the gym, still climb, still spend time at that coffee shop. Sometimes we talk about the future, but there's no pressure, no strategy, no keeping score. Just two people who mean it when they say they care. Rachel wanted freedom. She got it. So did I. The difference is mine came with peace instead of chaos.